Good morning and welcome to Herald Now. It is Monday the 29th of September. It's great to be back with you this week. On the show this morning, New Zealand goes against the grain at the UN, holding back from recognising a Palestinian state. It's a controversial call. The Prime Minister and David Seymour were both at the Cabinet table and both are on the show to explain this morning. A budget boost for corrections to manage the growing number of prisoners has been chewed through in a year ahead of schedule, leaving suboptimal levels of frontline staff. We'll look at this. Plus, the boys are in for Monday's sports panel. England take out the Women's Rugby World Cup. The Black Ferns take third place and the ABs are keeping the Bledisloe Cup. Later in the show, wait for it, only 3 months until Christmas. So start now and save money. We've got some tips for you. First, Neva with news.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
A former Race Relations Commissioner has harshly criticised the government's call not to recognise Palestinian statehood. Winston Peters confirmed this stance at the UN over the weekend, saying the conditions are not yet right. But the former Commissioner, Gregory Fortain, says recognition would have provided hope for ordinary Palestinians. But he says instead, it looks as though we're waiting until a genocide is finished.
All that will be left will be a desolate place, and we will recognise the cemeteries. We should get involved while people are still alive.
More prisoners and less money to look after them. An extra $98 million was announced in the budget to keep corrections funded until next year, when it was expected to be looking after 10,800 prisoners. But the forecasts were wrong, and corrections was just shy of that number a year early. Corrections says it's suboptimal, but their Minister Mark Mitchell isn't worried. He hasn't been briefed or is aware of any reduction in services. Demand for housing is still a matter of location. New Auckland Council analysis of the latest property valuations and a new spatial demand model shows land is far more valuable in some parts of the city than others. Land in central residential suburbs is in very high demand. Council Chief Economist Gary Blick says demand is also stronger near beaches and parks and commercial centres. Auckland's mayor is concerned the government's keeping secrets when it comes to a possible new harbour crossing. The government's looking at options for a second crossing and has a barge out on the Waitemata looking at the feasibility of tunnels. Herald senior reporter Simon Wilson says Mayor Wayne Brown believes he and the council are being left out of the loop.
Wayne Brown is upset that he is being kept, as he puts it, completely in the dark. He doesn't know what they're finding, and he said to me, we don't even know where their office is.
Transport Minister Chris Bishop rejects these claims. 3 Trans-Tasman space projects aiming to improve naval, agriculture and satellite systems are getting a funding boost of up to $5.3 million from the government. Matched by support from Australia, they will deliver advanced maritime awareness across the Indo-Pacific, improve water efficiency for farmers and upgrade high-speed data transfer. Space Minister Judith Collins says they will boost our economies, bring our two countries closer together and accelerate aerospace innovation. Lotto counters and the My Lotto website and app will be offline until this afternoon for a major tech upgrade. They were taken offline at 7 p.m. last night. Keno and Bullseye draws will run today, but the results won't be published until later in the day.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Silver Ferns 3-0 series win over South Africa has been eclipsed by a call from shooter Grace Weke for Dame Nolene Todua to return as coach of the team. Brisbane have beaten 4-time defending champions Penrith 16-14 to advance to the NRL League final against Melbourne next Sunday. Lisa Adams has triumphed in the F37 shot put at the Para-Athletics World Championships in New Delhi. New Zealand has secured a bronze medal in the first mixed 8 event held at a rowing World Championships.
Putin's playing a game of chicken with the Europeans, and so far it kind of looks like the Europeans are the chickens. He's flying drones like these ones over Denmark and Norway. NATO has so far taken the softly approach to them. These are fighter jets which were seen over Alaska, close to the American airspace. and were intercepted by some American jets. That happened last week. Now, take your pick of experts and former military bosses chiming in on the why over the weekend, and you'll get as many different answers. Are these incursions a mistake? You'd have to say no. There are far too many of them now. So they reckon he's doing this for one of two reasons. Either to keep more territory in Ukraine, kind of freak out the Europeans a bit, they might buckle and give him more of what he wants, or he's trying to pick off countries one by one to test the NATO response, lining up his next potential target. Does NATO respond differently to a Polish incursion than it does to a Danish one? The point of NATO, of course, is that it shouldn't matter, all for one, one for all of that. The question then becomes, how do you deal with it? Interesting comments at the weekend from a guy called Moritz Brake. He's with the Centre for Advanced Security, Strategic and Integration Studies. He says you've got to be more forceful with the Russians. The Turks shot down a Russian jet back in 2015, you might remember this, just seconds after it entered airspace there. And guess what? Putin didn't go to war with Turkey. The fighter pilots pretty quickly learnt whose airspace belonged to whom.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Today it's a case of watching this front moving northwards. Some wetter weather at the moment over Buller, wondering rumbles of thunder through there as well. But that rain shifts northwards up towards the northland, leaving behind some clearer skies for the likes of Canterbury. As we head through the morning time, that wet weather will continue moving northwards. One or two heavier spells of rain perhaps on that western coast, place like Taranaki. You can see by the end of the day, it even reaches up towards Auckland and Northland. While down south, we've still got a few showers pushing through in towards parts of south and perhaps round the corner in towards Dunedin. One or two of those might be quite sharp as well, and still with a wintry feel over some of those higher mountain passes. That wet weather over the Tasman region and Buller will clear off as we head through the daytime, so an improving story there. And not a bad looking day through Canterbury and Marlborough. I think we'll find perhaps an odd shower arriving in Canterbury later on. For Wellington, Taranaki, Manawatu, the rain arrives this morning. One or two sharper spells of that rain as well, but it will get better for the afternoon. But it's the reverse of that story for the likes of the Bay of Plenty in Hawke's Bay, with the rain arriving later in the day and still one or two heavier spells through parts of the Bay of Plenty. Waikato, Auckland, Northland, again, that rain moves northwards as we head through the daytime, so expect a wetter end today on Monday. Top temperatures in Auckland, 20 degrees Celsius.
7 after 6 on your Monday morning. So we're not recognising a Palestinian state just yet. Winston Peters spoke to the UN Saturday, says now's not the time, though it will happen eventually. The government says they would first need to see Palestinian territory removed from control of Hamas, a return of remaining hostages, and established governance capacity within the Palestinian Authority. In other words, some elections and an actual government. David Seymour, the Deputy Prime Minister, was at the Cabinet table when the decision was made and joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Is it? I know you can't talk about what happens in Cabinet. There's the Fight Club clause. But is it fair to say that all three parties were in general agreement at the beginning and the end of these discussions?
Yeah, I think it's shown the strength of the coalition. We've come together strongly around this. And I've been surprised at the number of people who've just quietly got in touch with me in the street, people who haven't been out protesting or sending rude emails or doing anything else up until now, but they've just been saying thank you. This is a triumph for reason and logic over rule by emotion and rule by the mob. We've stepped through logically what it would mean to recognise, who would we be recognising, what would we be encouraging, and would any good come of it? And we've come to the conclusion through reason and logic that this is not the time to recognise Palestine, even though New Zealand's policy in the long term is a two-state solution. It's not possible now.
Are you worried about blowback from Arab states, from Gulf states?
No, I'm not, because New Zealand has made its decision in a careful and respectful way. They, of course, have a lot to gain from having good relations with New Zealand, as we have a lot to gain from good relations from them. That doesn't mean that we can't think for ourselves and reason our way to a better position, which is what we've done, and I think they'll respect that.
Okay, and just to be clear, all three of you, at the beginning and the end of this process, all shared the same opinion that you share now?
Well, as you said at the start, you know I can't say that, and I know you know I can't say that.
Did you hold? I mean, what I'm asking is whether you were the deciding factor in this, whether you were saying, I'm not going to recognise.
No. Well, again, I'm not going to get into it because once you start doing it, next time you ask me, you'll say, why don't you do it this time? So,
was it anything to do with sucking up to the Americans or worrying about pissing the Americans off or anything like that?
Well, one thing I will say, and I think the Prime Minister said this as well. The views of the United States haven't been a major factor here. What it's been is, what are we recognising? How does it work? What happens next? We've actually thought through for ourselves and come to this conclusion.
Okay.
And I think that's why a lot of people are so happy and so proud of the government's position here in New Zealand, because it shows that we don't just have to follow the mob. We don't have to be ruled by emotion. We can actually think for ourselves and come to a better conclusion. Now, imagine if that sort of thinking broke out, what we could achieve.
The people that you're talking about will be throwing things at the television because you've just said, the mob, and you've said that basically they're a bit hysterical. So what do you say to those people who are going to be really let down, disappointed by a position?
Well, what I would say is, take the position that we've gone through. Number one, what are you recognising? Which boundaries? Which government? Number two, what are the implications of doing that? What are you rewarding? What sort of behaviour are you rewarding? And number three, what practical effect does it have on the situation? And number four, where is your concern about the likes of Ukraine or South Sudan? Unfortunately, this is one of several terrible situations in the world right now. Do you think
it's about TikTok and Instagram likes?
Well, I think social media has played a major role in shaping people's views. I think that it's been influenced by people who may not have New Zealand's best interests at heart, by the way, and I believe that
who?
Well, it's pretty clear that there's an awful lot of material out there that you have to wonder if that was just a standard person with their own TikTok or Instagram account, or if somebody's actually trying to influence how you think.
Like who?
Well, I'm not going to start saying who I think it is, but all I'd say to people who
it's a big call to make, though.
Well, if you're viewing social media, three rules that I always apply. Who is telling me this? Do I know? Why are they telling me this?
Are you saying you don't believe that there's starvation, that there's, horrible atrocities happening inside Gaza?
I think that there are absolutely terrible things happening inside Gaza. There's no question
about
that. I believe that there is starvation happening.
Right.
There's no question about that.
So they're not wrong, what they're posting?
What I would say is that we have a level of concentration of concern and a phenomena that has grown up around this conflict that you don't see for South Sudan.
Yeah, that's true.
You're not seeing it for Ukraine. And my question is why? So whenever you're on social media, who's saying this? Why are they saying it? And for this to be true, what else would have to be true? And if you start applying that, you actually come to much better conclusions.
All right. Hey, quick couple of things for you. I saw on Friday that AUT looks like they might be going to reverse their compulsory tikanga Māori classes for all students. Do you see that as a win?
I think you mean the University of Auckland.
Sorry, forgive me.
But the University of Auckland, yes, their Senate voted 2-1 to make this compulsory course voluntary. Their Vice-Chancellor has now come out and said the same thing. And this is, again, just a massive victory for people to be able to use reason and logic to get through their lives and make up their own mind. I have a huge admiration for what Māori culture can do. It's important to a lot of people, but I oppose compulsion in all its forms. And when you say this is mandatory, it's actually counterproductive.
Hey, very quickly, in fact, we have time for one-word answer. We've got the energy sector reporting back this week, the Frontier report. Would you say, in a word, our woes are the problem of the market or regulation?
Regulation. Sovereign risk has scared people out of building, and that's why we're poor when it comes to energy. What we need is a stable environment where people can invest, not the government coming up with a new crazy scheme every 5 days.
Or chopping up the gentailers.
Well, I'm not commenting on that,
right.
But we need stability, is all I'll say.
Deputy Prime Minister David Seymour, appreciate your time this morning. Just gone 14 minutes after 6. We'd like your feedback on that Palestine question this morning, your views. Ryan at nzherald.co.nz. That's Ryan at nzherald.co.nz. We would love your feedback and we'll read it out on air. Here's Winston from the UN.
Recognition at this time, we also think, is open to political manipulation by both Hamas and Israel. Hamas will seek to portray our recognition of Palestine as a victory, as they have already done in response to partner announcements. Israel will claim the recognition rewards Hamas and that it removes pressure on them to release hostages and agree to a ceasefire. Ladies and gentlemen, because even now, after almost 2 years of this outrage, Hamas refused to give the hostages back. And then, like over 150 countries before it, New Zealand's recognition of Palestinian statehood now would serve as little more than an existential act of defiance against an unalterable state of affairs. We are not ready to make that gesture.
Yasmin Serhan is with Justice for Palestine and joins me live at the desk. Good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to have you here, Yasmin. Tell me what your reaction is to all of this.
So the New Zealand government has really positioned itself to recognise the state that's complicit in genocide and not stand with the people who are experiencing the genocide. And I feel that this position doesn't really align with New Zealand's values or New Zealand's history, so there's widespread disappointment. But as Palestinians living in New Zealand, you know, there's comfort in the growing popular and mass support that we have from New Zealanders across all the towns and cities, you know, those that have been protesting in various shapes and forms over the last 100 weeks or so. So although we see that the government hasn't taken the right step, we're comforted by the growing support, and we still stand really firm in the belief that this growing support will move our government and change our government.
Yasmin, you said that the government's recognising Israel here, but they were very explicit in calling out Israel for the ongoing harm it's doing and calling out Hamas equally. So is that fair to say that?
So how we see it, Ryan, is that by not recognising the state of Palestine, a lot is actually said, and it puts us in a position where one party is seen and recognised as rational political actors, whereas Palestinians are not given that mana, right?
But that, I mean, Israel has democratic elections, they're holding another one next year. This is the sort of nitty-gritty of the problem, I guess, that Winston was trying to talk about there, was there's no, you know, elected government for all of the territory. So who do you actually recognise?
Yeah. So, like, there's been for years questions about Palestinian leadership, questions about who's in power, and questions about the authority, you know, in the West Bank. But here's the thing: the New Zealand government is choosing to work with. I'm going to use the words of our Prime Minister, who, you know, says a lot of things that I don't agree with. The Israeli leadership have lost the plot. That's how he's described them, and yet we are seeing them as the main obstacle to peace. We're seeing them as, within just the last month, they've attacked 6 sovereign nations. They've assassinated Palestinian peace negotiators, and yet we're giving them the grace to be dealt with as rational political leaders. Now, when we're talking about Palestinians, we also need to extend them that rational political political leaders. So hold on. Thank you. So what I mean by that, and what we mean by that, is if we are serious, because this is the position of the government, right, that they want to work towards peace and that they do want to support a two-state solution. They want to work towards that. They've made it clear. And if we're serious about working towards that, and if in New Zealand we want to be part of driving that peace, then Palestinians need to be dealt with as political rational actors with a relevant political demand.
But not Hamas.
We're talking about Palestinians.
Yes.
Now, any form of the current forms of Palestinian leadership that exist, there's 2 different political factions, neither of which are accepted by Israel. The civil society, non-violent BDS or boycott, divestment, sanctions movement is also not recognised by Israel. So what we're seeing again and again is that any form of Palestinian leadership is shut down by Israel. So I think New Zealand really has a key part to play in supporting that direction towards peace, and it brings us back to the main mahi that I think a New Zealand government can do, which is to push for sanctions as a means of applying pressure towards that peacemaking.
Which they say they're doing, albeit limited on the more extreme ends of Netanyahu's cabinet, right? But I guess it still doesn't answer the question about Hamas. is there any role for Hamas in a future leadership of any territory in Palestine?
So I think the thing that we need to be thinking about is that there needs to be Palestinian leadership in this space. Just in the last couple of days, we've heard about these peace negotiations that, Trump and Tony Blair, etc., have been putting forward. And I think most New Zealanders would agree that a fair and just position towards peace is one that has Palestinians involved in the making. So we're almost at the 80 years of occupation now. Lots of different Western nations have talked about what peace looks like for us, etc., etc. Palestinians need to be determining what is the destiny of Palestine for Palestinians.
Right. Yasmin, always good to see you. Thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Ryan.
That's Yasmin Sahan, who's with Justice for Palestine. It is just gone 20 minutes after 6, and you're watching Herald Now. Prisoner numbers are climbing, and we're burning through the budget to keep them. We look at this next.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decided to build the GJs because of the good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Still can't get enough.
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry. With flexible widths at your fingertips, it makes designing easy. All at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhanging doors, or select from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height, width or depth of your cabinets. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to newsroom.co.nz.
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
Speaker to the acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of
You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university.
My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
Welcome back. You're watching Herald Now on your Monday morning. It's 22 minutes after 6. Sharon Haskell, this is the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs for Israel, has tweeted at Winston Peters in the last few hours, mentioning that she will be transiting through Auckland, through New Zealand, in late September. Well, so that must be very shortly. So she will shortly be, this is a senior minister, senior member of Netanyahu's government, will be coming to or through at least New Zealand. Late October is when this is scheduled to happen. So we'll ask the Prime Minister about that when he's on after 8 this morning. Do you know what I've just realised? I've been telling you the wrong time all morning because this clock isn't daylight savings. So it's actually 7:23. An innovative project aimed at monitoring the southern Indo-Pacific maritime region from space is one of 3 Trans-Tasman initiatives to get a funding boost from the government. It's called the Takahe mission. Delwyn Moller is the project lead and joins me now. Delwyn, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you on the show. I was interested, of all the announcements that Captain Collins made yesterday, I was most interested in this one. Tell me what exactly the project's trying to do.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that this one caught your attention because it's a pretty exciting innovation. So this project is really trying to fill an observational gap in terms of being able to detect things of interest from space in the ocean. And you can imagine that this is a very timely issue especially for New Zealand with such a vast EEZ and search and rescue zone. And then when we couple that with our Australian partners, the ocean is just massive. And so the question is, when there's something going on of interest, and it might be your drug-laden boats, for example, I know that's quite topical at the moment, how do you actually detect them in the first place? Once you've found them, then there's a number of assets that we can bring to bear in order to really figure out what's going on and monitor them, etc. But finding them in the first place can be really, really quite difficult. And so what we've done is we've come up with an innovative approach to advanced technology, I'd say, that couples kind of both what we have in the New Zealand aerospace sector, which is just burgeoning, and also some of the expertise from our Australian partners through the SmartSat CRC, who are wonderful. And so New Zealand Space Agency and MB have, I think, recognised the potential and put some additional funding forward for us to keep moving this in,
which is great.
Moving this forward.
And it's, as you say, drug boats, illegal fishing boats. There's a lot of reasons we want to be looking at this massive area of ocean. So at the moment, can you just give us a sense? Can we real-time satellite, have a look at what's going on in the ocean? And if not, is that what this is trying to do?
So we're kind of a link in that whole chain. So there's a massive amount of resources that can be applied to maritime domain awareness in all aspects of it. The problem is, where do you focus? So if you look at one little region, then you're missing everything else that's going on. And so we're trying to fix that link of intelligently saying, here's where, for example, the sea ice is in order to be able to navigate safely in the Southern Ocean. Or here's where something that is illicit going on that's very hard to detect from space because they, somewhat submerge these vessels. We've found something that's unusual over here. So now in near real time, we can get an optical asset or whatever it is. It might be a boat to go rescue some poor guy that's hanging onto a dinghy, to go then do our real time.
Right. And how do you get that, albeit maybe a blurry or a fuzzy view, how do you get that, Delwyn? Is that from space, literally like taking a photograph?
Literally from space, and in this case, we're using radar. So it sees through clouds, sees at night, so we kind of have that omnipresent side of things.
Fascinating stuff. Good luck with it. And I know it's getting funding both sides of the Tasman, so we're looking forward to seeing what happens with Project Takahe. That's lead Delwyn Moller. Time is 26 minutes after 6. And in breaking news, at least one person has died and 9 others have been injured in a shooting at a Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints in Michigan in the United States. Police say a man armed with an assault rifle drove his vehicle into the front of the church during a large service and began shooting. A fire, believed to have been intentionally set by the gunman, engulfed the church. The fire's now been contained. The shooter has been killed in a shootout with 2 officers on the scene. We'll have more on that story throughout the morning. Our prisons here in New Zealand are filling up and our budgets lack the pace, I should say. New Zealand Herald exclusive this morning reveals the cash allocated in Budget 25 to manage the growing number of prisoners has been chewed through a year ahead of schedule, leaving corrections grappling with suboptimal frontline staffing levels. Despite this, Mark Mitchell says there's no looming crisis. He was on an early edition this morning saying that. Floyd du Plessis is Corrections Association President. Good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Floyd, what do you make of that? No crisis, no looming crisis. Is that fair?
Unfortunately not. From our perspective, the crisis is already here. What we're seeing at the moment is extremely high numbers of staff assaults. The tension within the prisons is rising, and the budget constraints is causing tension. We have situations at the moment, this very weekend, where units are running short. Prisons aren't even trying to staff the vacant shifts, and it's causing tension and violence.
What happened this weekend, Floyd?
So across the country, we have shortages, just like any workforce does. But unfortunately, what's happening is the prisons aren't trying to fill those vacancies. They're accepting that they're going to be short. They're accepting that budget's tight. And so they're not filling those vacant shifts. And what that creates is lockdowns. Prisoners get locked down, they don't get let out, increases tension. And staff have to deal with that tension and the problems that causes.
So this weekend, do you know how many, shifts weren't filled that should have been filled, and how many lockdowns were resulted as a consequence?
No, unfortunately, it's something that we have to manually go back and talk to our members and gather that information after the fact. So that's something that we are doing this morning. But it is a concern that was raised with us on Friday already around some of the prisons where this was happening, and staff were concerned on Friday already about the staffing. And unfortunately, it rolled through the weekend. Now this morning, we're busy visiting some of those prisons to look at exactly what was the extent of the concern this weekend, like it has been on multiple weekends and weekdays for the last few weeks.
Okay. Floyd, what about the double bunking thing? Can you just explain for people at home? Because I think a lot of Kiwis would go, well, I don't really care if you have to put prisoners, two to a room. Like, plenty of kids share bedrooms in New Zealand, in homes around New Zealand. So why should we be so worried about it?
Well, unfortunately, what it does is it creates violence. It creates tension. And while some people have that opinion, that's their opinion and fair enough. But what they need to understand is everyone gets released. And so part of what should be happening is we should be creating an environment where these prisoners can change and can improve themselves and get released back into the community in a better space. And when you're forcing people into bunk cells that don't want to be there, that drives tension and violence, and it creates issues that happen within those cells. And unfortunately, that is a real consequence. It's something that happens at the moment. And especially in the situation at the moment where we've got a muster crisis, we've got prisoners being forced into cells that don't want to be there. We had one prison that was starting to charge prisoners. So if they refused to bunk with someone, they got charged with a misconduct. Now, that's a situation where someone's not willing to go into a cell because they fear the ramifications of what's going to happen in that cell, particularly, like I said, when we're having regular locks. So you're having these prisoners in these bunk cells being forced into there, and they're staying there for hours on end without relief.
I know, but at the same time, Floyd, people will say, well, don't go to prison then, Don't commit crimes.
And I understand that, but the reality is staff have to deal with it. So staff have to unlock those cells. Staff have to deal with it on a daily basis. We work in the most violent industry in the country. We face this violence, we face these assaults on a daily basis across the country. And the bunk cell situation causes a huge amount of tension and a huge amount of violence. We've seen murders in the last 12 months within these bunk cells. It's something that is alarming and isn't being handled correctly.
Floyd, is the background behind you real?
Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful. I thought it was fake. Nice place. Good to see you. Floyd du Plessis, Corrections Association President. Time 28 minutes away from 8 o'clock. You're watching Herald Now. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
A former Race Relations Commissioner has harshly criticised the government's call not to recognise Palestinian statehood. Winston Peters confirmed this stance at the UN over the weekend, saying the conditions are not yet right. But the former Commissioner, Gregory Fortain, says recognition would have provided hope for ordinary Palestinians. But he says instead, it looks as though we're waiting until a genocide is finished.
All that will be left will be a desolate place, and we will recognise the cemeteries. We should get involved while people are still alive.
More prisoners and less money to look after them. An extra $98 million was announced in the budget to keep corrections funded until next year, when it was expected to be looking after 10,800 prisoners. But the forecasts were wrong, and corrections was just shy of that number a year early. Corrections says it's suboptimal, but their Minister Mark Mitchell isn't worried. He hasn't been briefed or is aware of any reduction in services. Demand for housing is still a matter of location. New Auckland Council analysis of the latest property valuations and a new spatial demand model shows land is far more valuable in some parts of the city than others. Land in central residential suburbs is in very high demand. Council Chief Economist Gary Blick says demand is also stronger near beaches and parks and commercial centres. Auckland's mayor is concerned the government's keeping secrets when it comes to a possible new harbour crossing. The government's looking at options for a second crossing and has a barge out on the Waitemata looking at the feasibility of tunnels. Herald senior reporter Simon Wilson says Mayor Wayne Brown believes he and the council are being left out of the loop.
Wayne Brown is upset that he is being kept, as he puts it, completely in the dark. He doesn't know what they're finding, and he said to me, we don't even know where their office is.
Transport Minister Chris Bishop rejects these claims. 3 Trans-Tasman space projects aiming to improve naval, agriculture and satellite systems are getting a funding boost of up to $5.3 million from the government. Matched by support from Australia, they will deliver advanced maritime awareness across the Indo-Pacific, improve water efficiency for farmers and upgrade high-speed data transfer. Space Minister Judith Collins says they will boost our economies, bring our 2 countries closer together and accelerate aerospace innovation. Lotto counters and the My Lotto website and app will be offline until this afternoon for a major tech upgrade. They were taken offline at 7 p.m. last night. Keno and Bullseye draws will run today, but the results won't be published until later in the day.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Silver Ferns 3-0 series win over South Africa has been eclipsed by a call from shooter Grace Weke for Dame Nolene Todua to return as coach of the team. Brisbane have beaten 4-time defending champions Penrith 16-14 to advance to the NRL League final against Melbourne next Sunday. Lisa Adams has triumphed in the F37 shot put at the Para Athletics World Championships in New Delhi. New Zealand has secured a bronze medal in the first mixed 8 event held at a rowing World Championships.
You're watching Herald Now. It's 24 minutes away from 8 o'clock. Great to have your company. Over in Europe, they're watching Moldova. They're expecting election results there sometime today, our time. And this is interesting because Moldova's basically sandwiched between Romania and Ukraine on the Black Sea, former Soviet Union, of course, bloc. And the question is, are they going to go with Europe or are they going to go with Russia? There is a current pro-Western party that's in power there, and the president saw off a challenge from these, what would you call them, Soviet nostalgic parties who tried to contest in 2020. So they have voted in a referendum, the Moldovans, 2.4 million of them, voted there to say, we want to go with the EU, we want to become members of the EU, but will those other parties pull them back from that, pull them closer towards Russia and give Russia yet another foothold into Europe, further into Europe? That is one they're watching closely this morning. We should have results in the next 24 hours. Here's weather.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Today it's a case of watching this front moving northwards. Some wetter weather at the moment over Bulla, wondering rumbles of thunder through there as well. But that rain shifts northwards up towards the northland, but leaving behind some clearer skies for the likes of Canterbury. As we head through the morning time, that wet weather will continue moving north. There's 1 or 2 heavier spells of rain perhaps on that western coast, place like Taranaki. You can see by the end of the day, it even reaches up towards Auckland and Northland. While down south, we've still got a few showers pushing through in towards parts of south and perhaps round the corner in towards Dunedin. 1 or 2 of those might be quite sharp as well, and still with a wintry feel over some of those higher mountain passes. That wet weather over the Tasman region and Bulla will clear off as we head through the daytime, so an improving story there, and not a bad looking day through Canterbury and Marlborough. I think we'll find perhaps an odd shower arriving in Canterbury later on. For Wellington, Taranaki, Manawatu, the rain arrives this morning. 1 or 2 sharper spells of that rain as well, but it will get better for the afternoon. But it's the reverse of that story for the likes of the Bay of Plenty in Hawke's Bay, with the rain arriving later in the day and still 1 or 2 heavier spells through parts of the Bay of Plenty. Waikato, Auckland, Northland, again, that rain moves northwards as we head through the daytime, so expect a wetter end today on Monday. Top temperatures in Auckland, 20 degrees Celsius.
A very funny story on the front page of the Herald this morning. It's all about Wayne Brown and what he knows, or more to the point, doesn't know about a harbour crossing. He says, we know nothing. And this is in an interview with Simon Wilson from the Herald. Go and read it if you haven't had a look. Basically says that he reckons the government is secretly planning either a tunnel or a crossing across the harbour and telling him nothing. He says NZTA has been keeping the council in the dark. He says they've got an office here, but he doesn't even know where it is. Then the government comes, it's like, Wayne, are you sure? Did you forget about a meeting? Because Bishop then comes out and says, no, I understand he has had a meeting with NZTA, and everybody knows that the early investigations into a crossing are happening. So anyway, it's quite a good story. I don't really care who knows, who doesn't know, so long as they just get something built. Time now to talk business with our partners, 2 Degrees. Garth Bray, Business Desk with me. Garth, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Ryan.
So Business Desk has been looking at productivity of some of our NZX-listed companies. What have you found?
Well, look, this is a sort of a methodology that big outfits like McKinsey use. We've had an economist take a look at it and say, yeah, you're on the right track. We didn't manage to get all 50 companies from the NZX top 50 because not all the data was there. But it's pretty interesting. It found about 11 out of 20 of them actually sort of went backwards when you accounted for inflation. So in real terms, the amount of extra value that their companies grew by sort of dropped even though they were adding people, which is kind of bizarre. And I guess if you look at sort of the big winners there, Synlait, Tower, the insurance company, and Mainfreight all scored pretty well. Synlait, over the 10 years with the data we looked at, managed to grow its extra value from adding extra workers by about 236%, which is pretty good. Bottom end of things, you've got Vector, who run most of the lines around Auckland as their main business. They were at the bottom. They actually became 50% less productive over that period. I mean, we'll get into, as the series continues on Business Desk, how each company has done that and what they have to say about that. But this is just sort of the big picture that's looking at how much smarter really our firms are working if they hire more people and there's only like a really tiny gain, or in some cases a drop in the amount of value that business creates from hiring more people.
Yeah, wouldn't it be more about the, you buying more machinery, that means that things become more productive? I mean, I'm just thinking your lines companies spend a lot of time fixing up after cyclones lately, as opposed to, maybe...
But I mean, that's all economic activity and so on, I suppose. It's just a question of how efficiently you're doing that, whether you are not just doing more with more people, but doing more than you would have if you'd had, say, half as many. It's, are you getting extra gains from having, greater than the extra numbers of people you're adding?
Look forward to seeing more on that. Now, we have basically finishing the sales job from Fonterra. They're heading around on the roadshow. Yeah. This is the mainland deal. I would have thought you just put up a slideshow with the massive 4.2 billion. You'll get 3. What's not to like?
What's not to like? Pretty much, that's a close approximation. But what we've seen drop today is the independent report from the Fonterra Shareholders Council. Now, that's the body that's there to sort of look after farmer shareholders' interests rather than the cooperatives, straight out interests, the corporate interest, that kind of thing. And they've had Northington Partners, who are pretty much, I think, the only outfit in the country that you can get to do an independent report of whatever your deal is. They've come back with a cautious tick that it's good value, basically, based on the price that they're getting for selling this to Lactalis, the French multinational, but also the ongoing supply agreements, which there's a lot to probably unpack around those, but just sort of the terms that they've got to continue supplying the milk. But it flags up a couple of risks, concentration risks, because as a result of this deal, the amount of money Fonterra makes from selling milk in China goes from about 28% of its overall earnings to about 34%. And it's saying China's, in its view, has got a slightly higher geopolitical risk from that trade. So we are putting more of our eggs or milk bottles or whatever you want to say into one market. Also, Fonterra's got the strategy of pursuing food service and ingredients, your high value protein powders and that kind of things. But
get your gains.
Well, it's saying, but those gains are commodity gains. It's more exposed to the commodity market as a result, so it's a bit more fluctuating. If you've got a brand, you tend to get brand loyalty, I think, is the presumption there. So there's just a wee bit more volatility in the mix. But overall, they're saying, look, pretty good deal. You should probably look at it.
But just so you know, here's some T's and C's, basically.
Here's some things so you can't come back at us and tell us we didn't tell you. Yeah.
Hey, very quickly, road cones. We know the tip line, you guys have got some numbers on. Yeah, what's happening?
Fired up in June. Big rush, about 600 complaints in the first month, and then tapering off now to about 50 in the last month. But it's cost about 100 grand so far. The WorkSafe people are saying that's out of existing budgets. They've got 1 person full-time and 3 people supporting that person, and they've had about 1,200 basically hot tips about too many road cones so far. Just over 1,000 of those, about 1,100 have been valid. 1,300 I should say, notifications. So pretty strong numbers, and in those cases they're going back to the councils or NZTA, most of them are actually about Auckland Transport or NZTA, and saying, hey look, you need to look at this, it looks like you've gone a bit beyond the kind of risk-based measures for how many you've got way too many. So I guess cautious look at sort of how well it's tracking.
Interesting, Garth. There's so many road cones that I actually ran one over in my car, and it's caused $600 worth of damage to the bottom of my vehicle.
Wow.
Because it ripped off. I mean, it was 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't really know what I'd done.
You are a hard worker. Are you driving late?
No, come on. I was I mean, it could have been a person, could have been a road cone. I wasn't stopping, Anyway, so it's actually rooted the bottom of the guard under my car.
Well, there's a lesson. There you go.
Well, what is the lesson? Get rid of the road cones.
Yeah, I don't know. Watch where you're going.
Yeah, all that. Don't drive when tired. Garth, thank you. Garth Bray, Business Desk. It is 16 minutes away from 7 on Herald Now. Coming up, we unpack the weekend sport. The boys are here for that. Plus, we'll get a quick look at the markets.
You Do It DIY can make your new dream kitchen a reality. As a trusted Kiwi manufacturer for 44 years, You Do It has made it easy to design, order and assemble your own dream kitchen, offering a range of colour options and flexible sizing. With excellent online support, our customers all agree that You Do It makes DIY easy, delivering superb quality at a great price. Get your project started today at newsroom.co.nz.
We have completed 4 builds with GJ. Every time we want to think of building, we always go back to GJ.
It's a really good experience throughout the whole process.
They deliver what they promise on, and it feels like working with a family member. It's very easy and trustworthy to work with GJ.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. In my previous life, I was a chef. Did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
Watching Herald Now, it's time for sport. The boys are here, Winston and Chris. Good morning, guys.
Hello. Good morning.
So we'll go rugby, NRL, UFC. We good with that?
I thought we could stick to road cones.
You like that story, do you?
Yeah.
Hey, the ABs will start there on Saturday, and the Wallabies, thoughts, impressions?
Yeah, so All Blacks will be relieved to come away with the Eden Park record intact again, blah, blah, blah. That's been the story for decades now. But it wasn't an entirely convincing win again, and there's this up and down pattern to the All Blacks at the moment. We saw it when they held off South Africa and then went to Wellington and got done. And so, do they go to Perth this weekend and get done again? They've got a couple of injury worries there. Beauden Barrett, who was looking pretty good, is off the card for this week, and Ethan de Groot as well. They'll get Scott Barrett back, but the Wallabies are getting a couple of real heavy hitters back, Will Skelton and Rob Valentini. They're very, very good players. So you could get this bounce back effect again. Now, if they do lose this weekend, it'll be the first time since, I think, 1986 that the All Blacks have gone win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. So it's a real up and down yo-yo, and we're just not sort of used to that as All Blacks fans. Like, we've had bad runs. We've gone three in a row defeats, even 5 in a row, back to 99, I think, and 98. But it's the up and down that's kind of unsettling. You know, we like to know where our team, are we good?
Or are we shit?
Yeah. You know, like, can we hold off, you know, the double world champion Springboks, or are we just roadkill to them? Are we just a traffic cone in the spotlights for them? So, yeah, it's just an unsettling time.
And where would we be without Eden Park is the other thing, of
Yeah,
course, right?
maybe they need to find some way to fold it up, to take a little replica, or just take the dirt, dig up some of the dirt, and take it on tour with them. You did right. If they could play Eden Park every week, we'd be home.
We'd be fine.
Yeah.
The dirt at Twickenham looked pretty good for England on the weekend. They've taken out the Women's Rugby World Cup, and we have taken third, which is better than fourth.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good performance from the Black Ferns on Saturday night, early Sunday morning against France. Kind of expected they would come out and play with some freedom. You know, there was no real pressure on that one. If they lost it, they would have fallen outside the top three for the first time, but they weren't playing like a team who thought about that. They just went out, played some footy, and ran up the score. The French came back. I think the last 20 minutes, the Black Ferns switched off a little bit, but by then the game was over. Bronze medal sewn up, and end the season on a high. So be interesting to see what happens from here. Obviously, Portia Woodman-Whitcliffe retired, came back. She hasn't said she's retiring again, but obviously she's got different priorities moving forward. Alan Bunting and the coaching staff, they're sort of up for renewal now. So you can expect there'll be a little bit of a review into what went on and how they can do better in the future.
Hey, Winston, we've got the finalists now for the NRL. Who's your pick?
Well, if you'd asked me at the start of the weekend, I would have said Penrith, because it's just what they do. This will be the first NRL final this decade that hasn't had the Panthers in it. So, Broncos, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, Broncos are a good team, but they're one of those teams that are either really good or they're really not good.
Right.
Melbourne are just overly consistent. They're just weirdly consistent. And they got Jerome Hughes back this week after 3 weeks after a broken arm, and he was phenomenal. So I think if they've got him on the field, I'd be back in the Storm. But I do like the final. It's a tough one to pick.
Hey, UFC in Perth. I saw some of it. I actually saw an interview beforehand. Is it Michelle?
Michelle Montague from Mata Mata. Yeah,
she's hilarious.
She is. Yeah.
Some of her comments about I hadn't had much experience with fighting other than a few schoolyard biffos when I was younger. Just a real character.
Yeah, she is. And she got a good win. That was her first fight where elbows were allowed, and she actually got cut open quite bad on the forehead in the first round with an elbow. So a lesson for her there, but she was pretty dominant, which was good. And good day for the Kiwis. I think they went 4 for 4 New Zealand fighters. Carlos Ulberg winning the main event by knockout. Now he's going on a plane to Vegas, probably either last night or today, to sit cage side for the world title fight, which is on Sunday. And I spoke to him after the fight yesterday, and he said he's offered to be the backup. So hey, he might fight again next week if things go his way.
What do you mean elbows? Is there a rule? Sometimes they
some promotions don't let you use elbows. It's I guess just a safety thing, but UFC is sort of safety. Elbows, knees.
They worry about safety.
You'd be in there, eh?
Right in there. Thanks, guys. That's Winston and Chris from the Herald. With sport time is 8 minutes away from 8 o'clock. An award-winning sculpture has been left virtually unrecognisable after being vandalised and then dumped in a backyard in Rotorua. Annabelle Reid has the story, Rotorua Daily Post reporter. Annabelle, what's going on with the statue?
Yeah, so basically a sculpture has been stolen from Rotorua's Sulphur Lake Sculpture Trail a few months ago, and it's been found vandalised with paint. It's given a bit of a scary new look, and it's been dumped in a local's home garden.
What is that scary new look?
Yeah, it's made from wood, and it's just sort of been painted over, I think, and yeah, it's been given some lipstick, and I think the hair's been coloured in by the looks of it.
Ah, I see. So the nude woman was already on the log of wood. Now someone's painted the wood black and given her a bit of a makeover.
Yeah, it's pretty ghastly. Someone described it as. It's quite a spooky thing to find in your garden.
Very weird. So was someone tripping, or what do we think happened here?
Well, we're not quite sure. So the local who found it just posted it onto a Facebook community page, and then it was discovered that it was artist Susan Dinkaleka. It was a Northland artist. It was found to be hers, and it's in the council's possession now and will be returned to the artist. But I think the artist thinks from photos that won't be recoverable, unfortunately.
Well, that's terrible. Who was the artist, sorry?
Susan Dinkenlecker.
Oh, yeah.
I hope I'm saying her last name
No,
right.
that's
She's
right.
from
And
Auckland.
so she's in Northland and she's seeing this online and this is the first time she's seen it. That must be very upsetting if you put all your heart and soul into something, right?
Yeah, I think she was quite shocked to see the photo of it, and she described it as being one of the highlights of her career, making it. So, yeah, I think she's quite disappointed.
All right. Well, if anyone knows what happened, get in touch with Annabelle. Annabelle Reid, Rotorua Daily Post reporter. Time is 6 minutes away from 8 o'clock now, and that means it's time for the markets. We do this every Monday with our partners, Forsyth Barr. Joining us today is Senior Equity Analyst Matt Montgomery. Matt, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Good to see you. Good to have you here. So let's talk markets. Fonterra, well, how could you go past them? And that result last week, and the payout for shareholders.
Yeah, talk of the town. So FY25 result was last Thursday. They reported normalised earnings of around 70 cents per share, so above the midpoint of their guidance. If you wind the clock back 12 months ago, they were guiding to 40 to 60 cents, so quite a good year in the context of where they started. They've obviously announced the completion or the near completion of the Mainland Group deal, so plenty happening, and they capped off FY25 in a very solid position. And
the markets like it, obviously, and the talk, at least from some farmers, is that this is going to be the new normal, that they could continue this kind of winning streak that they're on. Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think it's important to remember Mainland Group has been roughly 10 to 20% of their earnings historically, so it's a big change and it's a big number, the 4.2, but it's not a dramatic step change. But I think, as you alluded to, or as Garth alluded to earlier, it does create a couple of risks around greater exposure to commodity price cycles. The ingredients and food service businesses, which is what Fonterra is left with, is inherently volatile, largely with factors outside of their control. It does concentrate more exposure to China. But the first glimpse that they did provide into the business without Mainland Group was reasonably positive, ahead of what we were expecting. So, the first runs on the board have been solid, but for now it's, about, I guess, proving up the change in strategy. And there is, because, Garth was talking earlier about the risks that have been identified with the sale, as you say, leaving them more exposed, that sort of thing. But there were also risks and downsides to having it too. Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah, no, I think that's right. If you look through the history of the consumer business and the Australian business, it's been reasonably underwhelming for not just 1 or 2 years, but a considerable period of time. So, naturally over time we expected that business to improve, which was a driver of growth for Fonterra, but we're of the view that Fonterra has made the correct decision here in divesting the business, and we're supportive of the price is reasonable. Okay. And what about Synlait? They've got a report coming out today. Yeah, so 8:30 this morning they'll announce their full year result. It's been reasonably well guided, but there are a couple of key questions here for the company moving forward. One is around how they manage their North Island plants, so they're quite meaningfully loss-making. The plant's reasonably underutilised, so the trajectory of that will be interesting. Plus, the A2 Milk Company, which has been their large, successful company for a considerable period of time, is slowly navigating themselves away from Synlait. So any commentary as to how Synlait is preparing themselves for this move will be of interest. Yeah, absolutely. Matt, good to have you in the studio. Thank you. Thanks for being here. That's Matt Montgomery, who is Senior Equity Analyst at Forsyth Barr. Thanks to our partners, Forsyth Barr, we delve into the markets every Monday. It is 3 minutes away from 8 o'clock. You're watching Herald Now. Very quickly, this is on American politics. It's sort of every so often there is a shutdown, a government shutdown season in America where they go, we're going to have to fire everybody and slash budgets and slash and burn unless we can agree on something. And then always at the 11th hour they manage to agree on something. Well, that's happening again. And the time that you need to know about, local time, is 12:01 on Wednesday. At that time, the whole free world shuts down. The government of the free world shuts down, apparently. Anyway, Trump, in an effort to stave this off, is going to meet with 4 Congress members. Remember, you need 60 votes to pass these stopgap interim budget measures which would prevent all this bad stuff from happening. And the Republicans currently control 53, majority is 53 to 47, so they have to get some of the Dems onto their side. So Trump is going to meet with 2 Republicans and he's going to meet with 2 Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries and who was the other one? Chuck Schumer. So he's inviting them to the Oval Office, see if they can nut something out. That's happening today. Hopefully that would stop a shutdown from happening on Wednesday. One other thing, and we've done lots of international news this morning, which is good, but there's one that I haven't mentioned that I think is most relevant to New Zealand, and that is a report from the Wall Street Journal that Xi Jinping, who's obviously talking to Trump about trade deals and trying to figure the whole tariff thing out, he wants to put Taiwan on the table in these negotiations. Now that's important to us because Taiwan is in our backyard. Some people have described it as like our Ukraine. So if China tries to take Taiwan either by force or by a quarantine or a blockade, that would have immediate consequences for our trade. A lot of it goes through the Taiwan Strait. That's how we get our stuff to market. So Xi Jinping trying to include that in trade negotiations with Donald Trump. And then you ask, well, does Trump really care about, geopolitics, or is he more interested in business and in how he is perceived in America? That should be a bit of a worry for us this morning. And saying all of that, it is time for Neva with news in just a moment. Right now, it's 8 o'clock. Good morning, you're watching Herald Now. I'm Ryan Bridge. It is Monday the 29th of September. On the show this morning, the Prime Minister is here in a few minutes to talk us through the controversial call not to recognise Palestinian statehood. Could it risk our reputation? Up to 11 people have been shot and a massive fire has engulfed a Mormon church in Michigan. We'll keep you across this story this morning. And it's less than 3 months until Christmas. I know. Consumer New Zealand is here with tips to save on your shopping bill, and getting in early might just help. First, here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
A former Race Relations Commissioner has harshly criticised the government's call not to recognise Palestinian statehood. Winston Peters confirmed the stance at the UN over the weekend, saying the conditions are not yet right. But the former Commissioner, Gregory Fortain, says recognition would have provided hope for ordinary Palestinians. But he says instead, it looks as though we're waiting until a genocide is finished.
All that will be left will be a desolate place, and we will recognise the cemeteries. We should get involved while people are still alive.
More prisoners and less money to look after them. An extra $98 million was announced in the budget to keep corrections funded until next year, when it was expected to be looking after 10,800 prisoners. But the forecasts were wrong, and corrections was just shy of that number a year early. Corrections says it's suboptimal, but their Minister Mark Mitchell isn't worried. He hasn't been briefed or is aware of any reduction in services. Demand for housing is still a matter of location. New Auckland Council analysis of the latest property valuations and a new spatial demand model shows land is far more valuable in some parts of the city than others. Land in central residential suburbs is in very high demand. Council Chief Economist Gary Blick says demand is also stronger near beaches and parks and commercial centres. Auckland's mayor is concerned the government's keeping secrets when it comes to a possible new harbour crossing. The government's looking at options for a second crossing and has a barge out on the Waitemata looking at the feasibility of tunnels. Herald senior reporter Simon Wilson says Mayor Wayne Brown believes he and the council are being left out of the loop.
Wayne Brown is upset that he is being kept, as he puts it, completely in the dark. He doesn't know what they're finding, and he said to me, we don't even know where their office is.
Transport Minister Chris Bishop rejects these claims. 3 Trans-Tasman space projects aiming to improve naval, agriculture and satellite systems are getting a funding boost of up to $5.3 million from the government. Matched by support from Australia, they will deliver advanced maritime awareness across the Indo-Pacific, improve water efficiency for farmers and upgrade high-speed data transfer. Space Minister Judith Collins says they will boost our economies, bring our two countries closer together and accelerate aerospace innovation. Lotto counters and the My Lotto website and app will be offline until this afternoon for a major tech upgrade. They were taken offline at 7 p.m. last night. Keno and Bullseye draws will run today, but the results won't be published until later in the day.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Silver Ferns 3-0 series win over South Africa has been eclipsed by a call from shooter Grace Weke for Dame Nolene Todua to return as coach of the team. Brisbane have beaten 4-time defending champions Penrith 16-14 to advance to the NRL League final against Melbourne next Sunday. Lisa Adams has triumphed in the F37 shot put at the Para Athletics World Championships in New Delhi. New Zealand has secured a bronze medal in the first mixed 8 event held at a rowing World Championships.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Today it's a case of watching this front moving northwards. Some wetter weather at the moment over Bulla. Wondering rumbles of thunder through there as well. But that rain shifts northwards up towards the northland, but leaving behind some clearer skies for the likes of Canterbury. As we head through the morning time, that wet weather will continue moving northwards. 1 or 2 heavier spells of rain perhaps on that western coast, place like Taranaki. You can see by the end of the day, it even reaches up towards Auckland and Northland. While down south, we've still got a few showers pushing through in towards parts of south and perhaps round the corner in towards Dunedin. 1 or 2 of those might be quite sharp as well, and still with a wintry feel over some of those higher mountain passes. That wet weather over the Tasman region and Bulla will clear off as we head through the daytime, so an improving story there. And not a bad looking day through Canterbury and Marlborough. I think we'll find perhaps an odd shower arriving in Canterbury later on. For Wellington, Taranaki, Manawatu, the rain arrives this morning. 1 or 2 sharper spells of that rain as well, but it will get better for the afternoon. But it's the reverse of that story for the likes of the Bay of Plenty in Hawke's Bay, with the rain arriving later in the day and still 1 or 2 heavier spells through parts of the Bay of Plenty. Waikato, Auckland, Northland, again, that rain moves northwards as we head through the daytime, so expect a wetter end today on Monday. Top temperatures in Auckland, 20 degrees Celsius.
Joining us now on a Monday morning is the Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon. Good morning, Prime Minister, good to see you.
Good morning, Ryan. Welcome back.
Thank you. What are you doing down there? Are you avoiding me up here? What's going on?
No. You know where I can, I try and get to see you in the studio. But today we've actually got a really big announcement on earthquakes and our legislation around that, and how do we get a better balance between managing earthquake risk but also the cost associated with mitigating buildings around that as well. So down here for a big announcement at 2:30 around that, which will be really important.
Yeah, I saw that. I was going to ask you about it later, but we might as well do it now. So could save the country around $8 billion, because it went too far, right? We went a bit gung-ho on the regulation.
Yeah, look, I think the regulation was well intended, but the consequences of it, like a lot of things, has actually led to a lot of paralysis across the country. And you've got a lot of building owners that are, got their cash tied up in buildings that are either derelict and they haven't got the money to mediate. But also we've got to get a little bit more sophisticated in just managing risk, and actually that's not the same risk everywhere. It's not one size fits all. So, essentially what Chris Pink and I will announce today is sort of a better balancing of all of that. And yes, that does have an $8 billion type benefit, which is money that could be spent back into the economy. But there's just, as you know, moving around the country, you probably run into it as well, is that you'll go to some towns and there's a lot of derelict buildings, and that's and the real reason is because the cost to remediate is actually greater than the cost of the building, and then the risk is actually very low. And so we just got to get the better balance on
All right. Hey, Palestine, have you had any reaction from the Americans at this point?
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, we just made our own independent decision. We worked our way through the issue as we said we would. It was appropriate that we did actually, think about through our position again, given what we saw some of our friends doing. Some of our friends, as you know, have recognised, some haven't. And I think New Zealand made the right decision for us.
What about this idea that some have said they'll all be dead in Gaza by the time you recognise Palestine?
Well, look, I mean, I appreciate there's strong views on either side of that debate. There's also a large number of New Zealanders that don't have a view on it. What we're saying very strongly is, look, our focus has to be actually, exactly as you just said, on the conflict and actually getting to a ceasefire. For that to happen, both parties need to stop being so intransigent and actually come to the table, negotiate with diplomacy and actually find a way to get to a ceasefire. That requires two things, I think, Ryan. One is, Hamas as a brutal terrorist organisation has to release those hostages. And two, Israel, who's been grossly disproportionate with its response, needs to uphold international law by making sure aid and assistance can get into Gaza freely, make sure that they're protecting civilians and pull back from military action.
Here's the thing, though, Prime Minister, about all of this. Is the whole statement was prefaced on this. What we need in the meantime is more dialogue and more diplomacy, right, between these two countries. And yet we've learnt this morning that we've got the Deputy Foreign Minister of Israel coming here and none of you are meeting with her.
Well, again, we've made our position pretty clear to Israel on a number of issues about where we think,
but aren't you meant to be talking?
Ministerial statements, over that period of time.
What about
diplomacy?
diplomacy?
We continue to do that through ambassadorial conversations. We have an ambassador here, and we talk to the ambassador here. We also talk to the Palestinian Authority as well, and we continue to support the Palestinian Authority, upgrading its governance and its institutions as well. So we talk to both sides. We're not pro-Palestine or pro-Israel. We're actually pro-peace, as I keep saying. We're friends to both. But for that to happen, we're a long way away from it. We need the regional actors to play the role that they're playing, trying to get both those parties to a better place. Otherwise, the suffering and the human catastrophe that's has unfolded.
Yeah, I know, but here's your chance. You've got a government minister in the country to state this message, to make this claim, and you're not even taking the chance.
Well, we talk to Israel, we talk to the Palestinian Authority continually, and I can tell you foreign ministers have spoken at that level. We talk to ambassadorial level, and we'll continue to do so.
Hey, the tikanga in law thing, where's that come from? Did you get, have you had international investors come to you and say this is a potential problem?
No, look, Goldsmith was at a Law Society debate or, being interviewed, and I think made a not unreasonable point, given some of the, if you think about the Peter Ellis case, and I think, arguably the decision maybe around gang patch returns, just saying all he was alluding to was, look, there's a role for it, but actually we've got to make sure it's really crystal clear for people to navigate, that actually you do get certainty. If you're an investor, you know that if you've got a remedy or a conflict that you need, that the legal system will deliver that for you. So that's the only point he was trying to make.
Right. So no one, just to clarify, no foreign investors have ever said to you, this is a problem?
No, okay. not at this stage.
Is the problem?
It was in the context of a Law Society conversation, which is obviously quite technical and academic. He's just making the point, I think, not unreasonably, which is you need to know what you're signing up for if you're going to make an investment, and that's what we've done very well in New Zealand. We should be very proud of our legal system.
Is part of the problem that the treaty clauses aren't defined in law? The problem Seymour was trying to solve that you stopped?
Well, that's the work that we are working through, which is not the Treaty Principles Bill, but what we are doing is saying we've got a lot of legislation that's got just very generic, broad definition saying give effect to the treaty. And what we want to do is be much more specific with those clauses in legislation, and we're working our way through each of those pieces to say let's be very clear about what the obligations are so that everybody understands what their obligations are to iwi and to Māori under our Treaty of Waitangi expectations. But equally, we can't just have a broad, open-ended clause that's so generic that no one knows what they're supposed to be doing about that.
So what happens when you say that you're going through those at the moment? Can you just change them, or do you have to go through a consultation process to change them, or will you just change them unilaterally?
No, we'll go through a process where we take on there's some parts of different bits of it's just variable, Ryan. It's built up over a number of years, and all we're trying to do is give people certainty and clarity. But we have to go through a proper legal process, legislative process with them.
Oh, right. So there'll be public consultation.
Yep.
Okay. Right, let's move on then, talk about the energy sector. You've got this Frontier report coming out this week, and I've spoken to David Seymour this morning. It sounds like you're not going to go with breaking up the gentailers, but in terms of underwriting investment in more generation, the government doing that, how would that actually work?
Well, I think there's two things going on here. One is we've still got a massive job to do to make it easier and faster to do renewables. And as we've talked before, we want to double renewables. We've done a specific RMA amendment bill just in the last few months to be able to make renewables what's called a permitted activity, to make consenting within a year, extend the consents that already exist for those renewable assets. And we've got to double that amount of renewables over the next wee while. The real issue, as you identified, is really around thermal energy generation, which we're going to need when we have dry years, essentially, and when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine. So, really, we've done a series of things. Overturn the oil and gas ban. It would be great if Labor came on board and had bipartisan support for that. We've put some money aside as a contingency to co-invest with potential global investors for gas exploration. We have actually said to the gentailers, you will sell your electricity to the same price that you sell to your own retailing operations to your competitors, the smaller players as well, so we get more competition in the gentailer space. And we've also obviously expanded out coal reserves behind Huntly, which is not great, but from an emissions point of view. But in the absence of not having gas, sufficient gas, we have to rely on coal in the short term. So, and Simon Watts will have more to say about it later on this week as to what more we can do as well.
In terms of underwriting the generation?
In terms of our general approach to what more can we be doing, common sense stuff that we can be doing to make sure we've got energy security.
You're not going to be splitting up.
Have abundant, affordable electricity.
You're not splitting up the gentailers, though, are you? You can let people.
I'm not going to
know that this morning.
Yeah, I'm not going to get ahead of the announcement. It's coming shortly, and I'll let Simon talk to it all very shortly. And
do we have
the coherence of the whole policy?
Do we have too many energy regulators at the moment? We've got 3 separate regulators.
Again, I'm going to let Simon get into all of that. Okay. I mean, there are, we've taken a good look at the energy market and saying what can we do, despite what is a really challenging situation dealing with the consequences of ending that oil and gas ban and the shortfall that we have on thermal energy generation. What more can we be doing? Simon's got some common sense, practical ideas around that, which he'll talk to shortly.
Mood of the boardroom last week. Obviously, there were good and bad for the government in there. But let's focus on government spending, which is, we've got a structural deficit in this country and we're not going to get out of it for, 3-4 years from now. Will you go harder on cutting government spending after, the election or next budget? Is this even on your books?
Well, what's on my books is just continuous improvement of the public service, period. We want to make sure there's maximum value for money. We want to make sure.
Yeah, but what about the cost of it? That's what the mood of the boardroom is talking about, Prime Minister, is the cost of the public service.
Well, again, I'll just say what our focus has been this year, this term has been to make sure that we actually cut back on the bureaucracy in the back office.
But we're still spending. Government spending is going up. Debt is going up.
Yeah, sorry, Ryan, I'm sorry, you got a delay there. Yes, the reality is, yes, that's the short term in the next couple of years, but we have a plan, as we're saying, to taper that off. The choices are very simple. Carry on with the old model of tax more, spend more, borrow more, or alternatively put the car into reverse and go into hard austerity. And we're finding a middle pathway through that. We're doing the sensible things for the long term. Major reform on RMA, education, trade and investment, defence, law and order have been really big hallmarks of this government in this term. And we continue to actually then make sure we get better delivery out of public service. I think there's a big way to reimagine our public services. I think technology-enabled, customer-focused, large service organisations is kind of where we've got to be able to get to, where actually they respond just like service organisations do in the private sector.
Local government, I saw they had early results. This is from early voting for Auckland Council. I think it was like 10% of people had voted. There's 2 weeks to go. We normally get to like 38 to 40%. How do you see that as anything but a wholesale rejection or vote of no confidence in local government altogether? And, when are you going to get rid of some of these councils?
Well, I'll just say, I get the frustration with local government. We've got many very good mayors across the country and councils that are doing an exceptionally good job. But if you care about your rates being up 12.5%, then you got to vote. If you care about actually your pipes or your roads or your rubbish collection, then you've got to get out and vote. And democracy is a pretty special thing, and I've met Ukrainian soldiers fighting for democracy, and I'm telling you, if you care about your representation, either A, go and get involved if you think you'd be a better candidate and actually want to go in and do something and fight for your community and represent your people in your community, then you can do that at any time. Equally, councils and candidates that are standing, got to make the case for why they should be exciting people to go on and come out and vote for them.
All right. Appreciate your time this morning. We better let you go, Prime Minister. Thank you. Christopher Luxon in Wellington at Parliament. We'll be back after this quick break.
When building for investment, it's important to find a team that you can trust.
We decide to build the GGs because they're good quality that they always provide us.
They help us throughout the whole process of getting the resource consent to the building consent, and their contracts are very easy to understand. We have built 4 houses with GJ Gardeners, and it's just easier every time we work with them.
I'll definitely recommend GJs to all of my friends and family.
If you're thinking of building, choose the builder you'll want to build with time and time again.
Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough. Yeah, do what I want. Yeah, can't get enough.
You Do It delivers high-quality New Zealand-made flat-pack DIY kitchen cabinetry. With flexible widths at your fingertips, it makes designing easy. All at an affordable price because you order online and cut out the middleman. You can even upgrade your dream kitchen with You Do It stylish and clever options, like choosing wall cabinets with overhanging doors, or select from a range of pull-out storage solutions. Add premium soft-close drawers and ask to stretch the height, width or depth of your cabinets. Upgrade your kitchen today and head to newsroom.co.nz.
Ready?
One Roof Property. Love where you live.
The Beacon City Acting Prime Minister, does he stand by all of
You don't shout out like some bunch of clowns at university.
My message to the union is very clear. Don't use...
The New Zealand Herald, news worth knowing.
8:20, daylight savings. Come on, Ryan. On Herald Now, good to have your company. So David Seymour, Deputy Prime Minister on Herald Now this morning, told us it's a victory for common sense and against mob rule. This is in relation to New Zealand deciding at the weekend not to recognise a Palestinian state. Winston Peters made that clear at the UN. Joining us is Geoffrey Miller, geopolitical analyst. Geoffrey, good morning.
Good morning, Ryan.
Well, first of all, what do you make of David Seymour's comments?
Look, there's a lot of polarisation with this issue. If you've looked at social media over the weekend, you'll see plenty of people in favour of decision and a lot of people against it, and there's not much in between. And I think you saw the Israeli reaction to this decision. Sharon Haskell, the Deputy Foreign Minister, said that it was an act of moral courage and common sense, and those words, common sense, are being reflected there with David Seymour as well. So it's very much a division here, which I think is a shame, because I don't think this necessarily should be a partisan issue, and I don't think it was until the weekend. I think National in particular and Labour were quite closely aligned with their positions on Gaza and on the war, and New Zealand really has broken ranks here on this decision. It has moved away from the likes of Australia, Canada, the United Kingdom. These are countries with which New Zealand stood quite closely over the past 18 months, almost 2 years since this war began. It has issued many joint statements with those countries and had held quite close relations with those countries in terms of the war in Gaza. So it is a surprise in that sense.
Does that not, therein lies the point, Geoffrey, the war in Gaza, as opposed to the practicalities of recognising a Palestinian state for which there is currently no elected government?
Look, I take your point, but I think the issues are inextricably interlinked here, Ryan, because the whole point is, why are countries looking to recognise a Palestinian state right now? Well, it's because Israel is doing its utmost to make a Palestinian state impossible. And Benjamin Netanyahu, who spoke some hours before Winston Peters at the UN in New York, said that it would be national suicide to allow the creation of a Palestinian state ever. So Israel is totally against a two-state solution. The United States is backing it up on that. And New Zealand, I think, will then be seen in that category, even if that wasn't Winston Peters' intention. He said, Winston Peters, at the UN, that it's a case of when, not if, for New Zealand's recognition of a Palestinian state. And he made some good arguments. I mean, some of these arguments have merit, that there isn't a state to recognise, there's no viable state, in the conventional sense of recognition of states. Winston Peters' arguments make some sense. But I think in the end, New Zealand will just be an absent dot on the map, and there's an ever-diminishing group of countries that do not recognise a Palestinian state. 157 states out of 193 now recognise one. New Zealand will be one of the outliers from here on in, unless New Zealand changes its mind, perhaps recognises a Palestinian state in the coming months, years. Who knows?
All right, Jeffrey, very quickly, I want to get your hot take on the drone situation. They haven't come out and said, the Europeans, this is categorically Putin and Russia, but who else is it, The drones, we've got the fighter jet incursions. It's happening not just in Europe, but Alaska. They've been doing that for months, but again, over the weekend, and the Americans coming to intercept. What's Putin's game plan here?
Well, look, there are a lot of claims and counterclaims flying around. I think we've got to be really careful with looking at these. We've got to find some evidence. When it comes to the drones in Denmark, there's still no evidence at all that Russia is behind them. There's a lot of conjecture. And you have to remember those drones over New Jersey and the United States at the end of last year, the drones above Gatwick Airport in 2018. There have been various scares like this in the past.
So you're calling conspiracy?
The one that is real and is substantiated were the drones over Poland that were shot down, some of them, by NATO. And look, that is concerning, because it's an escalation, and we need to de-escalate on this front. We do not want this war getting out of hand, getting even worse. Look, one war is bad enough in the Middle East. The war in Ukraine grinds on. Look, it's a desperate situation for the world geopolitically, and we need cooler heads here. We need more diplomacy, more de-escalation, more dialogue, because we could end up with a declared war between NATO and Russia instead of just an undeclared one, and it would just spell disaster for the world.
Exactly. Right, Jeffrey, appreciate your time. Jeffrey Miller, geopolitical analyst from Otago University. Time is 25 minutes after 7. Joining us for our panel, Phil Goff, former Auckland Mayor, and Lewis Sewell, former Labour MP. Good morning.
Morning, Ryan.
Good to see you both. Just very quickly on the Russia thing while we're here.
Yeah.
Putin I think just doing his thing, testing the boundaries. But is he trying to get more concessions on Ukraine, do you think, Phil? What's his game plan? Or is it that he's trying to find his next target to invade?
Well, he's already interfered in the Moldavia election and Georgia. He runs Belarus. He has the imperial czarist ambition to recreate the Russian Empire. And he's thumbing his nose at Trump. He's humiliating Trump, actually, because of his incursions into Poland and other countries. So he will go on doing what he's doing.
Until someone shoots him down.
Until they make him stop. He doesn't understand soft power, and he thinks he treats Trump with contempt, and that annoys Trump a little bit, but not so much that Trump is restoring his support for Ukraine. He's selling the weapons to NATO, who then provide them to Ukraine.
Okay.
So he's making the money, but he's not providing the support for a country under threat for its democracy and its freedom.
Lewis is staying internationally for a second with Palestine. The decision by the government. We've heard from the PM this morning, David Seymour this morning. Your thoughts?
Makes no sense for us. We don't have a reason of state, such as a country like Germany. They are in some ways continuing this truth and reconciliation post the Holocaust, and they've invested billions of dollars actually in helping Israel reform. Same with the US. They were there when they were formed in 1948. We have no reason as a state to continue to support Israel. What we do have is an imperative to uphold international law. And when you want a two-state solution, and this is my very simple position, you need two states. The UN recognises Palestinian state, but the biggest concern globally are the citizens of Palestine and what's happening to them on an everyday basis. So we actually have no justification for not recognising Palestine as a state at this point in time. And I think the government needs to continue to justify this position, which is completely incongruent with our international standing as a rules-based, democratic country which protects all citizens.
What are you, Black Ferns or All Blacks? What were you watching on the weekend, or both?
I was away, so I didn't get to see either, but I followed both on the radio, which is not the same. I love the Black Ferns. Full of personality, a lot of courage. They don't get the same opportunities as their opponents to have games with other countries, but they've got some brilliant people on the team. But it was a consolation weekend, wasn't it? After the weekend before, we beat the Aussies, as we should have, but it was close, and we got the consolation bronze.
Lewis, because you're former Black Fern, of course, how did Canada do it when, as I understand it, they were like they're not professionally funded, are they?
They have a union. Actually, it's a bit of an anomaly because their Canadian Rugby did put in $2.4 million, but they crowdfunded $1 million for additional camps to prepare. But they have a very interesting philosophy, I'll call it. They don't have a competition in Canada, but their players play a lot in the English League. There are 9 professional clubs in the UK. Our biggest issue and the fragility of our system is we continue to rely on individuals. So for the Black Ferns, we have superstars like Georgia Miller and Braxton Sorensen, McGee and others. Same with Cam Roigard, the superstar who comes in. But we will never win without a systemic response to what's happening in the UK. The UK government with the UK Rugby Union put in £12 million for an initiative called Impact 2025. They want 100,000 women players. They're working with the clubs, but they're also targeting under 12-year-olds. We need a systemic response, otherwise we will never...
How many have they got towards the 100,000, do you know?
They're currently at 22,000, so their player base is equating ours, but the growth in the sport there is because they are deliberately creating systems and pathways for young girls, and after England winning, they will have an explosion, but we can't rely on individual talent, and that's our biggest issue. So we should have a tri-series. We should be already partnering with Australia and South Africa. Australia are hosting the next Women's Rugby World Cup, and the Men's World Cup, by the way. But we've got to get smart.
So why don't we have a tri-series then? Is it funding, or is it just that they're not talking or sorting it out?
No, they haven't talked about it. So we have Opiki, which has been our best bet, but we're not playing the best people in the world. And actually that's where Canada has been smart. They've allowed their players to play in other competitions, including some of their players playing here, which means they haven't had to create a league, but their players are playing in the best competitions in the world. And we don't have that.
Hey, very quickly, Christmas. Phil, Christmas shopping, we're talking about, it's 3 months to go now. And I was actually over in Australia back in maybe 6 weeks ago, and they had their first things on sale in the stores, Christmas gifts and baubles and stuff like that. Are you already shopping? What's your plan?
I hate shopping, so I leave my spouse to do that. She loves it. I think that's a gender difference, actually. If I go shopping, it's for a specific purpose, and I'm in and out. My wife makes a real art of it. Christmas, we all look forward to it, but it's not just the shopping.
It's not your thing.
It's everything around it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, so what about you?
Actually, I'm a bit the same. My wife is very, very focused on Christmas shopping. But, the difference for us, we're going to Australia this year. We're taking 96-year-old Laurel to be with the family in Sydney. And we've got lots of grandchildren, great-grandchildren that we'll be buying.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Leave it to the wives.
It's about the family rather than shopping.
Yeah, I agree with Phil on that.
Good to see you both. Thanks so much for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
It's former Auckland Mayor Phil Goff and Wissa Wall, former Labour MP, both former Labour MPs actually. It is 28 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Here's Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by Newstalk ZB.
A former Race Relations Commissioner has harshly criticised the government's call not to recognise Palestinian statehood. Winston Peters confirmed the stance at the UN over the weekend, saying the conditions are not yet right. But the former Commissioner, Gregory Fortain, says recognition would have provided hope for ordinary Palestinians. But he says instead, it looks as though we're waiting until a genocide is finished.
All that will be left will be a desolate place, and we will recognise the cemeteries. We should get involved while people are still alive.
More prisoners and less money to look after them. An extra $98 million was announced in the budget to keep corrections funded until next year, when it was expected to be looking after 10,800 prisoners. But the forecasts were wrong, and corrections was just shy of that number a year early. Corrections says it's suboptimal, but their Minister Mark Mitchell isn't worried. He hasn't been briefed or is aware of any reduction in services. Demand for housing is still a matter of location. New Auckland Council analysis of the latest property valuations and a new spatial demand model shows land is far more valuable in some parts of the city than others. Land in central residential suburbs is in very high demand. Council Chief Economist Gary Blick says demand is also stronger near beaches and parks and commercial centres. Auckland's mayor is concerned the government's keeping secrets when it comes to a possible new harbour crossing. The government's looking at options for a second crossing and has a barge out on the Waitemata looking at the feasibility of tunnels. Herald senior reporter Simon Wilson says Mayor Wayne Brown believes he and the council are being left out of the loop.
Wayne Brown is upset that he is being kept, as he puts it, completely in the dark. He doesn't know what they're finding, and he said to me, we don't even know where their office is.
Transport Minister Chris Bishop rejects these claims. 3 Trans-Tasman space projects aiming to improve naval, agriculture and satellite systems are getting a funding boost of up to $5.3 million from the government. Matched by support from Australia, they will deliver advanced maritime awareness across the Indo-Pacific, improve water efficiency for farmers and upgrade high-speed data transfer. Space Minister Judith Collins says they will boost our economies, bring our two countries closer together and accelerate aerospace innovation. Lotto counters and the My Lotto website and app will be offline until this afternoon for a major tech upgrade. They were taken offline at 7 p.m. last night. Keno and Bullseye draws will run today, but the results won't be published until later in the day.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Silver Ferns 3-0 series win over South Africa has been eclipsed by a call from shooter Grace Weke for Dame Nolene Todua to return as coach of the team. Brisbane have beaten 4-time defending champions Penrith 16-14 to advance to the NRL League final against Melbourne next Sunday. Lisa Adams has triumphed in the F-37 shot put at the Para-Athletics World Championships in New Delhi. New Zealand has secured a bronze medal in the first mixed 8 event held at a rowing World Championships.
Picking up on our breaking news this morning, at least one person has died and 9 others have been injured in a shootout at a Mormon church in Michigan. Authorities say a gunman rammed a vehicle through the front of the church during a large service, began shooting and then intentionally set a fire that grew into a massive blaze. At a press conference, police announced that they expect to find more victims. You can see that massive blaze on your screen right now. They expect, sadly, to find more victims when it is safe to enter the building.
10 gunshot victims have been transported to local hospitals at this time, including one who has been deceased. We do believe that we will find additional victims once we have that scene secure. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims of this incident, which is completely unnecessary and avoidable.
Now, there was a shootout involving 2 police officers. The suspect has been killed and has been identified as a 40-year-old Michigan man.
Herald Now weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Today it's a case of watching this front moving northwards. Some wetter weather at the moment over Buddha, wondering rumbles of thunder through there as well. But that rain shifts northwards up towards the northland, but leaving behind some clearer skies, the likes of Canterbury. As we head through the morning time, that wet weather will continue moving north. There's 1 or 2 heavier spells of rain perhaps on that western coast, place like Taranaki. You can see by the end of the day, it even reaches up towards Auckland and Northland. While down south, we've still got a few showers pushing through in towards parts of south and perhaps round the corner in towards Dunedin. 1 or 2 of those might be quite sharp as well, and still with a wintry feel over some of those higher mountain passes. That wet weather over the Tasman region and Buller will clear off as we head through the daytime, so an improving story there. And not a bad looking day through Canterbury and Marlborough. I think we'll find perhaps an odd shower arriving in Canterbury later on. For Wellington, Taranaki, Manawatu, the rain arrives this morning. 1 or 2 sharper spells of that rain as well, but it will get better for the afternoon. But it's the reverse of that story for the likes of the Bay of Plenty in Hawke's Bay, with the rain arriving later in the day and still 1 or 2 heavier spells through parts of the Bay of Plenty. Waikato, Auckland, Northland, again, that rain moves northwards as we head through the daytime, so expect a wetter end today on Monday. Top temperatures in Auckland, 20 degrees Celsius.
You're watching Herald Now. On the front page of your Herald this morning, it's all about Wayne Brown and what Wayne Brown doesn't know. He says he's been kept in the dark about plans to build tunnels for a new Auckland Harbour crossing. He told Herald senior journalist Simon Wilson the government has been working in secret.
And the idea that we would have a cross-harbour study that's secret from the city that owns that surrounds the harbour is nuts.
And it is secret at the moment. You don't know what they're doing.
We know nothing.
Investigatively
and, we don't even know where their
harbour.
office is. We don't know who the consultants are. It's bizarre. And when we looked, I've been keen on making use of Miola Reef for a number of sensible reasons. And we found, one of my staff found, there was a 1965 report from the government just after it got underway with the harbour crossing that led to exactly the same conclusion.
So if the government is being secretive about its intentions and is not letting you in, what makes you say that you think you're going to get a decent deal from Minister Bishop?
They've got an election next year.
You think that's what it comes down to?
Here we go. My personal view is the less you tell Auckland Council about plans to do anything, the better. Just keep them in the dark, treat them like mushrooms, in the dark and feed them shit. And then just spring it on them and do it. Don't ask for permission because there's 20 of them and they will get in your way. Right, 21 minutes away from 8 now. 3 months, that's how long we've got to go till Christmas, and that means we have 3 months to get our Christmas shopping done. Whether you do it early or you leave it to the last minute, here are some top tips. Sahar Lone is with us from Consumer NZ. Sahar, good morning.
Kia ora, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. Good to see you this morning. Have you started your Christmas shopping yet, Sahar?
No, I haven't, but my favourite gift is cash in an envelope. So it's usually pretty easy to come by, although, we're in a cost of living crisis, so cash is challenging for a lot of New Zealanders.
I'm very much in your camp, but if you want to make it look like you cared, you get one of those gift cards from a specific store, which is kind of just as easy.
Yeah, it could be, although they do come with an expiry date, which often gets people in trouble and means that they don't use them, meaning that that's just money wasted. So that's why cash in an envelope can be just as good. And we've got a few other tips, including not to pay for extended warranties because the Consumer Guarantees Act effectively does the same thing. So it means that you've got that backup and that the company should take reasonable care. There's a few other things to watch out for, like websites that pressure you into purchasing. So they might say things like one left when in fact that's not the case once you click through and try to add multiples to your basket, or airlines do that from time to time, so that's something to be wary of, or countdown timers, anything that's trying to get you to act quickly is something to watch out for. Yeah,
good advice. If ever they make you feel like you're at a casino, run. Sahar, what about you mentioned the warranties. You don't need to buy a warranty. So how do you know how long something should last and you would be covered under the Consumer Guarantees Act? Like if you're buying a microwave or a fridge, how long should we expect them to last? Yeah, that's a really good question. So we do have some guidance on our website.
under our product test information, but the Disputes Tribunal, who are wonderful, and you can complain to them if things do go wrong, and that's often just at the cost of $61 upwards. So, that's money perhaps better spent than the extended warranty. They use our results as well to help determine how long something should last.
And what about the sales? If you get something on sale between now and Christmas, my mum's notorious for this. She'll buy a beach towel for me every year, and I know she goes and buys it on the Boxing Day sales the year before. So it's not even very thoughtful. It's not even very meaningful, but it's cheap. What happens if you buy something on sale and you want to get a refund, and the store says no, because it was on sale, we can't do that? Is that legal?
There are actually a few stores that you can go back to, like Rebel Sports and Briscoe's, and depending on the timing, you might be able to get it at the sale price. So that's a handy trick to keep up your sleeve. There's also price comparison websites like PriceMe and PriceSpy, where you can look at something you're looking at purchasing and see what the trends are for sales, and actually try and understand through that mechanism whether it's a genuine sale or not. Because I think we're all attracted to, the lure of the yellow ticket is very strong. So it does pay to be wary.
Hey, I've just looked up on your website, because you mentioned I should go here, so I've followed your advice, how long a product should last. So it's got here 11 years for a fridge, a TV 8 years, laptops 5 years, microwaves 8 years. So if you're buying an extended warranty for 3 years on a microwave, you're throwing your money in down the drain.
Yeah, so I think that's why we say that they're pretty much null and void. Like, the Consumer Guarantees Act is there for people. There's also the Fair Trading Act. And under the Fair Trading Act, people, or businesses rather, traders can get large fines if they don't live up to their promise. So that can also include when things go wrong, such as with delivery or with the care that a business takes. So yeah, there are a few protections under the law. So that's why we urge people to actually exercise their rights rather than just being upsold, especially when money's tight.
It's really good advice. Thanks so much, Sahar. Good to have you on the show. Good luck with your Christmas shopping. ATM machine. Sahar Loan, Consumer NZ. It's 16 minutes away from 8 o'clock. So cordless vacuum cleaner, 5 years. If it's a corded vacuum cleaner, that's 8 years. Ovens should last you 15 years, and dryers 11 years. There you go. Right, coming up next, we're checking in on the Front Page podcast, and then Synlay's announced a big deal. We remember we had their results coming out about 15 minutes ago, so we'll check in with Garth.
You Do It DIY can make your new dream kitchen a reality. As a trusted Kiwi manufacturer for 44 years, You Do It has made it easy to design, order and assemble your own dream kitchen, offering a range of colour options and flexible sizing. With excellent online support, our customers all agree that You Do It makes DIY easy, delivering superb quality at a great price. Get your project started today at newsroom.co.nz.
We have completed 4 builds with GJ. Every time we want to think of building, we always go back to GJ.
It's a really good experience throughout the whole process.
They deliver what they promise on, and it feels like working with a family member. It's very easy and trustworthy to work with GJ.
I'm Hayden Scott, and I'm a knife maker. I make knives from my workshop at home in West Auckland. Yeah, my previous life, I was a chef. Did that for 25 years. But I had this knife making thing that I was doing and had been doing for some time. And so that transition from finishing that 25-year career and taking the plunge into full-time knife maker, I had been building up to that, but I still had to take a leap.
Know more of the story with Herald Premium, giving you full access to in-depth news, opinion and analysis, with more world news, business insights, and investigative reports from our world-class team of journalists. Plus subscriber-only functionality to comment on stories, access newspaper e-editions, gift articles, and enjoy crosswords and puzzles. Subscribe now to Herald Premium.
We're sorry. Churches and government institutions like mental hospitals, those who were responsible for the abuse of children in the care of the state or in the care of a faith-based institution, continuing to say sorry. Chelsea Daniels, the Front Page podcast, looking at this today. Chelsea, good morning.
Morning.
So who are you speaking to?
So I spoke to lawyer Amanda Hill. She represents some of the abuse and care survivors. And we basically went through, because I saw this, the Presbyterian Church, they did an apology event in Dunedin last weekend, and then the next one is in Auckland this weekend. And I kind of thought, well, are they, A, haven't they already said sorry yet? And B, what does it all mean? You know, is it just a big kumbaya, I'm sorry, etc. So Amanda went through it with me. And basically the government's decision not to go ahead with a Royal Commission of Inquiry key recommendation of having an independent overarching redress scheme means that all government institutions, all faith-based institutions, every redress scheme is different. So it's really, really hard to navigate how each and every scheme. If the government had just gone ahead with an independent overarching body, then everybody would know the rules. The rules would be the same for everyone. The redress would be the same for everyone, basically. She says the horse hasn't bolted, though. They can still do this. There's a wait time for 5 years redress for some people. And just to give you an example, she said someone who had experienced sexual abuse at Dilworth could receive compensation of, say, $200,000. Someone in state care who had experienced the same abuse or had potentially been abused for longer might get 30 to 40K. And that's completely fine because the redress systems are different for each body.
Right.
And
so it basically depends where the abuse happened, who you were abused by.
Completely depends, and also different redress schemes. So some might be money, some might be more holistic, so giving help, counselling, etc. And even she said some people need help just going through the ACC system. She said it's an absolute labyrinth for some people, and some people just can't be bothered with it. So each of these schemes have different help available, have different, and it's hard to pinpoint one of them, actually, because she says there are some good, there are some bad, and there are some really, really ugly.
All right, we'll look forward to today's one. Thank you. By the way, Chelsea, I happened to notice you.
Hey!
There's, looking pretty
There
as ever.
she is.
Front Page podcast. Go and check it out. All the good podcast place, and also on YouTube now as well, aren't you? Good to see you, Chelsea. Right, time now is 10 away from 8. So the $100 million, government sets it aside in Budget 25. This is to hire more staff to manage growing prison population. That money's already been spent, and we were forecasting a certain number. We've already reached that number ahead of schedule. I spoke to the Corrections Minister, Mark Mitchell, about this earlier on ZB. For prison, story in the Herald this morning, the $98 million set aside in last year's budget to hire staff for 10,800 inmates has already been spent, apparently. Prisoner numbers have hit 10,763, so just shy of that, almost a year ahead of forecast. There are 276 jobs still vacant. Mark Mitchell, the Minister, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Ryan.
So forecasts were off. Is this because we have more criminals or a higher proportion of them being locked up?
There's just more people being locked up because as an incoming government, we're really clear that we are prioritising public safety. And to do that, that means that we're not leaving people out in the community that we're hurting and causing problems. So actually, they're now in a corrections facility and we'll try to have a good crack at rehabilitating them.
Do you think Kiwis care if there's double bunking?
I don't know. I think that they care that we make sure that we run the best possible class corrections service we can in the world, and we do that. I love the chance to be able to talk about our corrections officers, whether they be in facilities or in the community, because they are quite simply world class. They do an amazing job. There are tens of thousands of positive interactions that happen every day. The problem is, of course, you only hear when something goes wrong through the media, but they quite simply are outstanding, and they've got a very important part to play around public safety, and they're standing up and they're performing that role well.
Fair enough, but Corrections says the staffing levels are suboptimal.
No, we're the best we've ever been in the last 8 years in terms of staff. We're in the best position we have been in 8 years.
So why are they saying it's suboptimal?
It's not suboptimal at all. It's not the corrections saying that it's suboptimal. They're saying that corrections are in the best place that they've been. Like I said, for 8 years, as an incoming government, they started a new recruiting campaign. That's been extremely successful. We've got a massive pipeline of people wanting to join and become corrections officers. We've got another 70 officers being trained and ready to deploy at the moment.
Okay.
We're in the best place that we've been for 8 years.
That campaign was very successful, and they point out they had 135,000 apparently applying for jobs, and yet you still have 276 vacancies. How does that compute?
Yeah, because that doesn't mean that everyone gets through. There are high standards required to become a New Zealand corrections officer, as it should be. But yes, like I said, we're in the best place we've been for 8 years in terms of recruiting, deployment, and actually staff on the floor. Now, what that meant when I first became minister is that we had a lot of new officers going out on the floor, and of course that comes with its own challenges. But we're now sort of almost 2 years in, and we're, like I said, we're in a really good position. Look, I have the opposition MPs, the Green MPs are visiting twice this week, different prisons. They're dying to find something wrong with what we're doing, what our staff are doing. They've been doing that now for almost 2 years, and they haven't been able to come up with anything. And that's a good thing. That's another health check.
Appreciate your time. Sounds like it too, Minister. Appreciate it. Mark Mitchell, Corrections Minister. It is.
You're watching Herald Now. That was Mark Mitchell, Corrections Minister, on Early Edition with me on News Talk ZB earlier this morning. Time now is 7 minutes away from 9 o'clock. Garth Bray is in next. We have a result from Sinlay, and they've announced a big deal. Read Pocono. Straight ahead.
A lot of radio shows like to say they're with you in the morning.
Here at The Hits, we like to go the extra mile.
Not all of us get to experience this.
Come on, you're running late.
It's going to be a great day today, babes. I can feel it. Spit. You see, when we say we're with you, we actually mean it.
Oh, don't forget Sarah, who got social netball tonight. And Mark's working late again.
Jono and Ben with you in the morning and anytime on iHeartRadio. On The Hits.
Oh, I also wanted to get something for my new kitchen while I was here.
Yeah, we've got plenty of great appliances for your kitchen.
Flavour.
Maximising productivity, what have you got?
Well, if we switch to 2 degrees, with Flex for Business, we can instantly manage data usage, employee mobile plans, and cost centre reporting, saving us time and money. Cool. I'll get onto that then.
Welcome back. It is time to talk business again, thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. Garth Bray's back from Business Desk with Sinlay just announcing a big deal in its annual results. Garth, what's up?
So this is one that we've been talking about, expecting will come, but confirmation that they are planning to sell their North Island assets, which is mostly that big dairy processing plant at Pocono, to Abbott, which is a big US-based pharmaceuticals company that produces healthcare products and that kind of thing. So you're refining powders, it's the same kind of thing, it's nutrition. And this is a deal they think will be worth about $307 million to Sinlay, which is good news. They're going to use that mostly to pay down some debt. And this is probably something that we've heard about for a while, expected it. There are also some assets, I think, in Auckland involved with like canning and processing and so on. They're going to need overseas investment office sign off on this because it's a pretty major transaction and involves land, and they'll need to check it in with their shareholders as well. But this is getting the big push from their chair, George Adams, in the annual results just out today, which not too bad. They're back in profit. It's about a $800,000 profit, I think, but they've been through some adjustments in the last sort of year. Obviously, last year was a bit of a hard year for them as they were trying to get through this big restructure and basically getting Chinese majority shareholder Bright Dairy to sort of take on a lot more of the debts of the company and take an increasing stake in the place. And it seems like this has been the year of sort of settling down for Synlait. Their prices, share prices have been doing pretty well. But yeah, they've really been looking at trying to crush their debt down, and I think they're saying that as of before this Pōkeno transaction goes through, they're down from about 550 million that they owe to 250 million, and they'll be able to sell off, crush that debt once they get this sale through.
Which is what they've needed to be doing. I interviewed the Synlait boss a couple of months ago about this and asked about Pōkeno. I mean, it's kind of been a bit of a ball and chain for them, hasn't it?
Big, expensive asset that's never really been used because they don't have as much milk collection in the North Island as they do down south, Dunsandel, Ashburton, around that area where they do have sort of stronger support from dairy farmer suppliers. So I guess it's just for them going, hey, look, there's no point being in this fight. Let's concentrate where we are best at. They've sort of turned around a lot of some of their food service ingredients and other business. So yeah, looking
get some money out, pay down some debt, get back on track.
Yeah,
Garth, good to see you. Garth Bray, Business Desk, thanks to our partners 2 Degrees. Time now is 2 minutes away from 8. Two numbers that you need to know. Actually, both of these came out last week, but I wasn't here, so I don't know whether you heard about them or not. Anyway, $2 trillion, that is total net worth of all of us in New Zealand, including our really rich people to our poorest people. Our total net worth in New Zealand is $2 trillion. What do you think Australia's is? 17.64 as at the 30th of June 2025. Now that is 10 times ours, yet their country is only, 5 or 6 times the size. So they're way richer than us. And I know I sound like a broken record, but one of the ways you get there is by saving more. And the only way we seem capable of doing that is to increase KiwiSaver contribution. So I think it's inevitable that that's probably going to have to happen. Further, beyond the 4, up from 3. It is 1 to 9. You're watching Herald Now. Let's check in with stories developing today with Katie Oliver from the Herald. Katie, good morning.
Good morning.
There's been a fatal incident in Matata on Saturday.
Yeah.
What's the latest here?
So this was in Matata, yes. So this is a 35-year-old woman who was assisting police in relation to this incident, has been charged with murder and grievous bodily harm. Now she's due to appear in Whakatane District Court today. Now emergency services were called to the scene just before 4 p.m. on Saturday after reports of an incident inside a moving vehicle. Now one person died during this incident and another person was taken to hospital. But yeah, that'll be happening today. We'll be across that.
Okay, and we heard anything about Bird of the Year?
Yes. Now this is very important news to a lot of people in New Zealand. Now this has been crowned to the Kārearea, New Zealand's falcon. Now have you ever seen a falcon
Yes.
in the wild? Have you seen how fast they fly?
Yes.
200 kilometres per hour they can fly.
And the damage they can do?
Yeah, they can do some serious damage at that speed, but they're beautiful. So they've come out on top with 14,317 votes. Now they are at risk due to habitat loss and predation, and second was Kia, and third was the Karure Black Robin. So there you go.
Very good. An eagle for us. Thanks, Katie. It is 9 o'clock on Herald Now. Let's check in with Neva.
Herald Now News, powered by News Talk ZB.
A former Race Relations Commissioner has harshly criticised the government's call not to recognise Palestinian statehood. Winston Peters confirmed this stance at the UN over the weekend, saying the conditions are not yet right. But the former Commissioner, Gregory Fortain, says recognition would have provided hope for ordinary Palestinians. But he says instead, it looks as though we're waiting until a genocide is finished.
All that will be left will be a desolate place, and we will recognise the cemeteries. We should get involved while people are still alive.
More prisoners and less money to look after them. An extra $98 million was announced in the budget to keep corrections funded until next year, when it was expected to be looking after 10,800 prisoners. But the forecasts were wrong, and corrections was just shy of that number a year early. Corrections says it's suboptimal, but their Minister Mark Mitchell isn't worried. He hasn't been briefed or is aware of any reduction in services. Demand for housing is still a matter of location. New Auckland Council analysis of the latest property valuations and a new spatial demand model shows land is far more valuable in some parts of the city than others. Land in central residential suburbs is in very high demand. Council Chief Economist Gary Blick says demand is also stronger near beaches and parks and commercial centres. Auckland's mayor is concerned the government's keeping secrets when it comes to a possible new harbour crossing. The government's looking at options for a second crossing and has a barge out on the Waitemata looking at the feasibility of tunnels. Herald senior reporter Simon Wilson says Mayor Wayne Brown believes he and the council are being left out of the loop.
Wayne Brown is upset that he is being kept, as he puts it, completely in the dark. He doesn't know what they're finding, and he said to me, we don't even know where their office is.
Transport Minister Chris Bishop rejects these claims. 3 Trans-Tasman space projects aiming to improve naval, agriculture and satellite systems are getting a funding boost of up to $5.3 million from the government. Matched by support from Australia, they will deliver advanced maritime awareness across the Indo-Pacific, improve water efficiency for farmers, and upgrade high-speed data transfer. Space Minister Judith Collins says they will boost our economies, bring our two countries closer together, and accelerate aerospace innovation. Lotto counters and the My Lotto website and app will be offline until this afternoon for a major tech upgrade. They were taken offline at 7 p.m. last night. Keno and Bullseye draws will run today, but the results won't be published until later in the day.
Herald Now Sport, brought to you by Gold Sport.
The Silver Ferns 3-0 series win over South Africa has been eclipsed by a call from shooter Grace Weke for Dame Nolene Todua to return as coach of the team. Brisbane have beaten 4-time defending champions Penrith 16-14 to advance to the NRL League final against Melbourne next Sunday. Lisa Adams has triumphed in the F37 shot put at the Para Athletics World Championships in New Delhi. New Zealand has secured a bronze medal in the first mixed 8 event held at a rowing World Championships.
Herald Now Weather, brought to you by You Do It Kitchens.
Kia ora, good morning. Today it's a case of watching this front moving northwards. Some wetter weather at the moment over Bulla, wondering rumbles of thunder through there as well. But that rain shifts northwards up towards the northland, but leaving behind some clearer skies to the likes of Canterbury. As we head through the morning time, that wet weather will continue moving northwards. 1 or 2 heavier spells of rain perhaps on that western coast, place like Taranaki. You can see by the end of the day, it even reaches up towards Auckland and Northland. While down south, we've still got a few showers pushing through in towards parts of south and perhaps around the corner in towards Dunedin. 1 or 2 of those might be quite sharp as well, and still with a wintry feel over some of those higher mountain passes. That wet weather over the Tasman region and Bulla will clear off as we head through the daytime, so an improving story there, and not a bad looking day through Canterbury and Marlborough. I think we'll find perhaps an odd shower arriving in Canterbury later on. For Wellington, Taranaki, Manawatu, the rain arrives this morning. 1 or 2 sharper spells of that rain as well, but it will get better for the afternoon. But it's the reverse of that story for the likes of the Bay of Plenty in Hawke's Bay, with the rain arriving later in the day and still 1 or 2 heavier spells through parts of the Bay of Plenty. Waikato, Auckland, Northland, again, that rain moves northwards as we head through the daytime, so expect a wetter end today on Monday. Top temperatures in Auckland, 20 degrees Celsius.
And that is it for us for your Monday morning. More news in the meantime at nzherald.co.nz. A quick thank you to our partners before we go. Forsyth Bar, You Do It, Barker's Max, 2 Degrees, GJ Gardner, Dilmar, and of course Noel Leeming. From all the team at Herald Now, thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.